Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this very exciting segment today. This is the 15th day of April 2023, and it's 22 degrees and sunny, and a gorgeous morning right here in Brisbane. And lots of people out and about. Even my coffee was late because there's so many people in my usual coffee spot. I'll go to plug out for them, the Sands Cafe right here at the Meriton Suite. Well, the beautiful coffee get you going in the morning. Well, ladies and gentlemen, last night Brisbane witnessed one of the best shows Brisbane has ever seen, and I think we have come of age in the terms of production and in the way we produce these shows. It's comparable to any big, huge music concert. Arijit Singh live at the Brisbane Entertainment Centre, which used to be called Boondall Entertainment Centre. It's out in the Boondall wetlands in the northern suburbs of Brisbane, one of the better suburbs, I must say. Yes, the turnout was just amazing, the number of people that came out, getting them all in. You know, that's a huge, huge stadium. The sound and lighting was just amazing, the production, the musicians. If you know Arijit's songs, they sound simple and easy. They are very tough songs, and only he can pull them with that conviction. And the very, very talented musicians, they just did amazing work. So, and 4 hours jam-packed without a break. He just pumped out the energy, and then he performed in Brisbane last night. Tonight he is performing in Auckland. How can he do it, after that production, going, flying out to Auckland, going through customs, through stage setup, sound testing and everything, and then bang on with a 4 hour plus full high energy performance. And the musicians, they were handpicked and they were beautifully choreographed. They knew their pieces, they knew what to do. There was no one introducing, now we're going to song number 2, things like that. No, it just went on and it just flowed through. So it's overall just a wonderful experience. And Brisbane Indian Times and Australian Indian Radio have been very, very proud that we were media sponsors for that. Well, right now, what's been making news? HEX, or like now it's called HELP. So changing the name, what does it make a difference?
HEX is now called HELP, and the current debt stands at more than $74 billion. Now, it affects 3 million graduates whose HEX debt is indexed each year by what they call the CPI. It's based on a 2-year average. It was 3.9% last June and is set to rise even further this year.
It could be 7.9%. It could be as high as that, depending on how they average it out.
It's high inflation that's causing the problem. Thousands of graduates have signed a petition for indexing to be frozen or abolished due to the cost of living crisis and the fact wages are not going up at the same rate.
So the debt's going up faster than they can ever hope to pay it off in this current environment.
Mum of 3, Gemma McWhirter, has just paid off her debt at 52 years of age. It took 27 years.
So it sat there growing for the 15 years that I raised my family and worked as a volunteer in the community.
The Greens have presented a bill to Parliament calling for an end to indexing.
No one should be shackled with tens of thousands of dollars of student debt, which is ballooning with inflation, and take a lifetime to pay. This is just completely unsustainable and totally unfair.
But the government says it's not planning to pause the hikes anytime soon.
This is an ordinary indexation, and in terms of repayments and pressure on people, the repayments go up when your salary goes up. That's how the system works.
Now, the sting in the tail is that your debt actually also affects your ability to borrow for a home loan. It's a financial merry-go-round that's just hard to get off.
A financial merry-go-round, but as our treasurer said, that there is a formula, and of course it has been there. Other students have done it. So if we change it now, it is befitting some, and it is not fair on the others. Or well, that's what the argument would be. But anyway, That's the way it is. Well, right now let's go to Western Australia. And what made this cyclone so strong?
Tropical cyclones don't just happen. Long before they reach land, it all starts out here in the ocean. But conditions have to be just right. Like the ocean temperature has to be at least 26.5 degrees. That's so that the sea is warm enough to provide enough water vapour, which is going to power the system. Cyclones are typically hundreds of kilometres across. Here, we're going to shrink the scale, but make sure we keep all of the forces the same. Those forces are like a giant atmospheric engine fueled by the moisture from the warm surface temperatures of the tropical oceans. Then all you need is a low pressure system to create a swirl, and you can see that moisture getting sucked high into the atmosphere. Let's kick this thing off. The rising moisture cools as it goes up, condensing to form clouds. You can see it's starting to rain. As it goes up, it helps to drop that central pressure, and that sucks in more air and more moisture. The system's growing and the winds are picking up as well. This thing is just about ready to get a name. Now, we get to one of the most remarkable phenomena of the system. At this point, the cyclone is essentially a solid cylinder of cloud. The warm, humid air is continuing to be pumped into the bottom of the cyclone and it rises through that cylinder. Most of it is dispersed out the top, but not all of it. Some of that air is starting to drop back down through the middle of the cylinder. And look what's happening. That air is evaporating the cloud, creating a well through the centre. And there you are. The cylinder is now hollow and we've got that cyclone shape that everyone recognises. And in the middle, the eye of the storm has formed. And here we are in the eye of the cyclone. It's calm here because the winds on opposite sides of the eye go in opposite directions, and in the middle, well, they cancel out.
Tropical cyclone Oma is a Category 2 system as we go to air.
Evacuations are underway in far north Queensland as locals flee the path of monster cyclone Yasi.
Back outside the cyclone, it's the ferocity of the winds that helps us determine its strength and to warn people of the dangers they face. For the lowest level cyclone, a Category 1, the winds have to reach 65 kilometres an hour. That's sustained winds, averaged over at least 10 minutes. With this sort of weather, you can expect damage to trees, perhaps even cars, but houses are mostly fine. Category 2 tropical cyclones pack maximum average wind speeds of 90 to 120 kilometres an hour. These are destructive and power failures are a real risk, as well as minor damage to homes. Category 3 tropical cyclones, they pack winds 120 to 160 kilometres an hour, and the gusts can get up to 200 kilometres an hour. These are severe tropical cyclones. Damage to buildings is noticeable and power failure likely because the infrastructure just can't hold up. Category 4 tropical cyclones have wind speeds up to 200 kilometres an hour with gusts approaching 280. It's incredibly dangerous with significant structural damage likely and large airborne debris that's extremely dangerous. Category 5 tropical cyclones have wind speeds over 200 kilometres an hour and gusts over 280. It's the highest emergency category and there will be widespread destruction. These destructive winds, along with flooding rain and damaging storm surges, are all the hallmarks of tropical cyclones. But despite the environmental damage, the flora and fauna of our tropical regions have evolved to not only survive, but flourish in the months and years after a destructive impact. Indeed, many tropical areas rely on the life-bringing rainfall that these systems produce. Without it, much of northern Australia would be far more arid. Even if a cluster of thunderstorms never advances beyond tropical low strength, they can still have a tremendous impact on the mainland, pushing flooding rains hundreds, if not thousands, of kilometres inland. And despite their southern formation, tropical cyclones aren't a random weather pattern. They actually serve a life-sustaining purpose. They act as the pressure cooker of the global climate, releasing energy in the form of heat from the surface into the upper atmosphere, which then cools as it mixes with air on its way towards the poles, helping to moderate temperatures and weather across the globe.
A great report there, and of course, the way it forms, now we know, and of course, in the tropics, they say, conventional rain, which meant, if you have a very hot day, the sea evaporates, it goes into the sky, and by the time it forms clouds, and then it comes down. That's what we learned as little kids in our primary school. Well, right now, IMF warns that Australia housing is risking wave of defaults.
As Australians tighten their belts, many fear more dire times ahead.
I'm retired, concerned.
Burger used to be, $5? Now it's like $16.
The cashew bags aren't quite as big.
The International Monetary Fund's latest outlook confirms times are tough. It has slashed its growth forecasts and is warning that there's now a far greater risk of a global recession, and that will include Australia.
Economic growth remains low by historical standards. Financial risks have increased, yet inflation has not decisively turned the corner.
The IMF says our national economy is expected to expand by just 1.6% this year and 1.7% next year, potentially less than population growth. It warns Australia has one of the highest levels of household debt in the world, second only to Canada, and as interest rates rise, so does the risk of borrowers defaulting on their loans.
Albanese knows that
the Treasurer Jim Chalmers is striking a more optimistic tone as he heads to Washington for a gathering of G20 finance ministers. He says our economy will slow, but we could avoid a recession.
the situation in the world has become more complex and more challenging even over the course of the last few months. And so we won't be completely immune from that.
The IMF is forecasting inflation will stay above the Reserve Bank's target range until 2025, and it expects the jobless rate will rise above 4%. Economists are divided on whether the RBA will raise interest rates next month, but an increasing number believe there's a heightened risk we'll end up in a recession.
That essentially means people losing their jobs, and that could create issues with paying off high mortgage debt.
Rising risk ahead. Nasim Khadem, ABC News.
Simple matter of economics, and if you keep rising one thing to counter another, so things will just keep coming up. No one's any better off. Well, that's what I believe. So, I mean, when we look at petrol, when we came here, it used to be 48 cents per litre. When it got to 50 something, 58 and something like that, people were complaining. People are still filling up their cars. They're still on the roads. I know there's a lot more hybrids and EVs out on the streets these days. But even then, if you look at the price, you look at any country for that matter, Fiji, be it India, what we used to pay and what people are paying now, it's all just crept up. Because then it has to come in line with the wages. Then for the wages, if employers have to pay more wages, they need to increase the cost of their goods that they're supplying because they need to cover the cost of employing people. So where do we stop? So, everything just keeps going up, but are people actually better off or not? Are people making a genuine savings? Or are people these days spending way beyond their limit? That is one of the habits these days because of the credit which is easily available, or which was probably not as easily available in the olden days. So, there was a bit of discipline in the way we spent money. These days, with buy now, pay later and all sorts of schemes that people get into, people go and spend more than they should. So that's where the inflation sort of comes in. And even IMF, in their report, they've looked at the GDP and everything, but in fact, they said that inflation has not turned the corner yet. So, all those measures that have been put in place still hasn't produced a result. We're still looking at the possibility of a global financial crisis moving into a recession once again. So there you are, that's that report. Well, our last report for today, Prince Henry to attend King Charles' coronation. Here's that report.
Steve, good morning. Prince Harry will be attending, but Meghan won't be.
That's right, Michael. This was confirmed by a statement from Buckingham Palace that Harry would be coming, Meghan would be staying. Meghan's staying with her two children in California on May the 6th. Now, there's been speculation about this issue for weeks, whether Harry and Meghan would attend or not. And a lot of that speculation came off the back of revelations in the media just over a month ago that they had received some kind of email asking about their attendance. Since that time, there's been a lot of speculation. Now we know the result of what that is. Meghan has said that one of the reasons that she's staying is that she wants to spend time with Archie, who turns 4. Her son turns 4 on the day of coronation on May the 6th. Now, of course, since the release of Harry's book and that Netflix series, there has been a fair bit of tension between Harry and his father and Harry and his brother. We're still not sure what role Harry might play at the actual coronation, because in 2020 he walked away from royal duties. He kept his title, of course, but he walked away from those duties, and so we're not sure if he'll play any official role in that ceremony or not. We don't know if he'll be, in the procession or whether he'll be on the balcony afterwards. We'll have to wait and see. Probably we'll find out a little bit more about that in the coming weeks, but he will be there. He will join over 2,000 others in Westminster Abbey on May the 6th when Charles III officially has his coronation.
Steve.
So there you go. You've actually had the news that yes, Henry would be there, minus Meghan. He might not take on any official duties or roles. What would be his involvement in the whole thing? We don't know, but we know for sure that he will be there. So there you go. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as promised, here's the bonus track for today.
बन्नो मेरी चली ससुराल को अखियों में बानी दे गई दुआ में मीठी गुड़दानी ले गई है बन्नो मेरी चली ससुराल को अखियों में बानी दे गई दुआ में गुड़दानी ले गए रे कबीरा रे फकीरा आजा तुझको पुकारे तेरी परछाइयां रे कबीरा मान जा रे फकीरा यूं कैसा तू है मेरे मोही कैसा रजाइया एक कबीरा एक कबीरा एक कबीरा एक फकीरा एक कबीरा एक कबीरा एक फकीरा टूट चारपाई वही ठंडी पुरवाही रास्ता देके धुंधों की मलाही वही मिट्टी की सुराही रास्ता देके टूटे चारपाई वही ठंडी पुरवाही रास्ता देके धुंधों की मलाही वही मिट्टी की सुराही रास्ता देके गुड़िया रे गुड़िया तेरा गुड्डा परदेसिया जोड़ी आसमानी हो गई शगुन पे देखो शांदमानी हो गई हाय गुड़िया रे गुड़िया तेरा गुड्डा परदेसिया जोड़ी आसमानी हो गई शगुन पे देखो शांदमानी हो गई रे कबीरा मान जा रे फकीरा यूं न जा आजा तुझको पुकारे तेरी परछाइयां रे कबीरा मान जा रे फकीरा यूं न जा कैसा तू है मेरे मोही कैसा हर जाइया रे कबीरा रे फकीरा एक कबीरा रे फकीरा एक कबीरा.
So that was Musafir Ali. He's been one of the interns here at the radio, and one day he brought along his guitar and he said he's going to do a couple of numbers, and we got down to recording some of the numbers, and I think that was just amazing. Well done, Musafir. We will bring some more of his tracks as we prod along. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for you today. And it's been wonderful having your company as usual. Don't forget that we're coming back at 10 a.m. With a very, very special interview with PT, which is Prasant Tupei and Guruji. So it will be a wonderful interview. But until then, it's goodbye from us. Enjoy the rest of the weekend. We know that there's lots happening in Brisbane this weekend. It's just jam-packed with functions and events.